The Vigilant Fury, an exploration vessel belonging to the Galactic Empire, was chasing down a rogue probe through the wreckage of a drifting meteor. The crew was taken by surprise when they discovered a cryopod floating nearby the probe. With one smooth, expertly executed maneuver, the Fury swept up both the pod and the probe inside the ship. The Imperial soldiers crowded around the pod, marked Pandora B, eager to see what they had stumbled upon. One look inside the cryopod had the crew bursting into laughter. "You've got to be kidding me," one soldier muttered. "Is that really what I think it is?" "By the stars, I think this might actually be a human," Commander Malcolm Drake said through a barely contained laugh. "I thought these silly things all died in their nuclear fallout. We've got to send this back to the CRF." "The CRF?" One soldier chuckled from behind him. "I think this one belongs in a museum, or maybe a zoo." Commander Malcolm Drake clapped his hands, silencing the jokes. "All right, enough fooling around, set a course for the capital. The Central Research Facility will be very interested in this. Admiral Simon Ward is going to love it." The engines of the Vigilant Fury roared as they broke light speed, heading toward the Imperial capital. Once there, top scientists took over. In the cold, sterile white labs, the human inside, Sergeant Liam Brooks, was nothing more than a curious oddity. The project was led by Dr. Ava Sinclair, a striking figure among the Galaxians. Her long, silky black hair gleamed like polished onyx under the lab lights, and her pink eyes sparkled with amusement as she circled the pod. "Look at him," she sneered, her sharp claw-like fingers tracing the pod's surface. "So fragile, so simple. How did they ever survive on their own planet?" The faintest of ridges along her nose twitched, as if repulsed by the sight of the human. Extinction was inevitable for such a primitive race. Her team murmured in agreement, their own pointed ears flickering slightly as their long hair cascaded around them like silk in the sterile air. Admiral Victor Hale strolled into the room, his commanding presence immediately silencing the group. His dark pink eyes burned with arrogant intensity as he approached the pod, hands clasped behind his back. His nose twitched with amusement. "So, this is it?" Victor Hale's voice was a low growl, laced with mocking disbelief. He leaned closer, fogging the glass with his breath for a moment. "The last of the humans? The species that wiped itself out in nuclear fire?" He chuckled deeply and turned toward Dr. Ava Sinclair. "Wake him up. Let's see what this last human has to offer. I'm sure it'll be entertaining." The lab machinery hummed as they prepared to open the pod. They expected nothing more than a feeble, pitiful creature, but they were about to awaken Liam Brooks, and the galaxy would never be the same. The sound of hissing decompressed gas filled the sterile lab as the pod was unsealed. The frost evaporated, revealing the sleeping figure inside. Liam's preserved body began to stir. His eyes fluttered open, his vision blurry as he looked at the unfamiliar faces around him. For a brief moment, he was caught between two worlds, the past and the present, until the memories of Earth's final days came rushing back. He recalled the blinding light of nuclear detonations, the vivid screams of humanity, and the sky glowing green with radiation. He remembered the fall of cities and the collapse of human civilization under its own hubris. Liam had been part of Earth's last stand, a member of an elite force known as Pandora Unit, designed to survive in the darkest moments of human existence. His mission had been clear: survive, be the final safeguard, frozen and preserved for the day humanity would need its soldiers again. But this was clearly not Earth. His trained instincts screamed at him that something was wrong. The air was too clean, the walls too bright and pristine, and strange alien faces crowded around him, their eyes wide with fascination and amusement. A researcher quickly injected him in the neck with a nanotranslator, allowing him to understand the language. Liam's head spun, his body weak from his long sleep, but his sharp mind remained intact. He was in enemy territory, and they had no idea who they were dealing with. Dr. Ava Sinclair watched from across the room as her team exchanged mocking glances. Liam could hear their laughter, masking their condescending remarks as academic observations. "He doesn't look so dangerous now, does he?" one researcher commented while scribbling on his datapad. Admiral Victor Hale placed his hands on his hips, bending down to take a closer look. "This is what they called a soldier? No wonder they destroyed their own planet. Fragile, chaotic creatures." Liam slowly sat up, his vision clearing and his mind sharpening. The weight of centuries in cryosleep pulled on his muscles, but he focused. His unit had been trained for all sorts of unexpected situations. His specialty was psychological warfare, not brute force. Break the mind, and the body will follow. He let them talk. He let them mock him. He gave them nothing but a seemingly innocent, soft smile as they laughed behind their masks of professionalism. The Galactians spoke freely, dismissing the fact that Liam could hear every word. He listened intently to their conversation about the Galactic Empire, instability on the outer worlds, and growing unrest. They believed they were safe. They thought of him as their new pet, but Liam could already see the cracks in their arrogant facade. The researcher monitoring his vitals looked him over one last time and chuckled. "Harmless," he muttered. Liam's lips curled into a faint, innocent smirk. "You have no idea," he whispered under his breath. His instincts were in control now, despite the fog of PTSD creeping around the edges of his mind. His training kicked in. He noted the guards' movements, the layout of the room, the security protocols, every piece of information he needed to plan his next move. He was not harmless. He was a trained killer, and these fools had handed him everything he needed on a silver platter. You see, Liam wasn't just any soldier. Before Earth's fall, he had led undercover operations behind enemy lines. Pandora soldiers were masters of manipulation, specialists in toppling nations from within. Liam was an agent of anarchy, and he was about to tear apart their comfortable little lives. Lieutenant Clara Mason had no idea, but by the time she laid her dazzling pink eyes on Liam, the game had already begun. At first, she was cold and dismissive, simply carrying out her duty of keeping the human in check. But Liam saw right through her doubts, her curiosity, and her thirst for approval from her superiors. Clara was playing perfectly into his hands. Liam played the role of the harmless captive to perfection, making sure to appear cooperative, soft-spoken, and weak. But beneath the surface, there was an undercurrent of mystery and humor that Lieutenant Isabel Quinn found strangely intriguing, even a bit seductive. After a week of watching him, engaging in small talk now and then, Liam struck. Standing in front of his cell, he looked deeply into her wide pink eyes and spoke. "I know you're not like the others." She raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" she asked, tucking a strand of her smooth black hair behind her pointy ear. "You're smarter than them," Liam continued, his voice soothing and almost hypnotic. "You see things they don't. You know I'm not a threat. I've been nothing but cooperative since I woke up. I could help you if you let me." Isabel frowned, her skepticism clear, but Liam could see the doubt beginning to creep into her eyes. "Help me how?" "I have knowledge," Liam said, a slight smile stretching across his face. "Tactics, how soldiers think, how they break." He paused. "Give me a little space, a bit of room to stretch my legs, and I'll share some of that knowledge with you. You could use it to move up the ranks, maybe even impress Admiral Victor Hale." Isabel hesitated, but Liam could already see her pride bending under his subtle manipulation. Her arrogance and ambition were pulling her closer to the edge. "Just small breaks," Liam added, his voice like poison, seeping into her thoughts. "Let me walk through the facility. I'm harmless, remember?" Against her better judgment, she agreed. It began with small walks through the facility's restricted zones. At first, it seemed harmless enough. Isabel was always there, keeping watch. But Liam wasn't interested in just stretching his legs. He was already laying the foundation for his plan. Soon after, fights and paranoia began to break out. Liam, using his free time, spread doubt and suspicion throughout the facility. He'd casually pass by groups of guards, whispering vague comments that set them on edge. "Did you hear what Lieutenant Isabel Quinn said about you?" he would murmur to one guard, his voice conspiratorial. "She thinks you're slipping up. Might be a promotion in it for someone else if you don't shape up." Another guard was easy to manipulate. While standing guard outside his containment cell, Liam mentioned, "You hear about the resistance cells in the outer systems. I've heard they've infiltrated places like this." It didn't take long for tensions to boil over. Guards accused one another of slacking off, backstabbing for promotions, and even spying for the resistance. Liam was able to tear their fragile bonds apart. What began as small conflicts turned into full-blown fights, first verbal, then physical. Liam moved stealthily through the chaos, slipping into off-limits areas. He sabotaged security systems, left sealed doors open, and disabled minor infrastructure just enough for things to go wrong without drawing attention to himself. At first, it was just lights flickering, a blink here and there. But soon, entire sections of the facility were plunged into darkness. Panic and confusion spread among the guards and researchers as every malfunction added fuel to the paranoia Liam had sown. Lieutenant Isabel Quinn was unraveling, and Liam reveled in it. The once overconfident officer paced outside his cell, biting her sharp claws and pulling at her silky hair. Overwhelmed by the mounting tension, she couldn't pinpoint its cause. She thought the only new variable was the harmless human. Finally, overcome with suspicion, she decided to confront Liam. At this point, she had started to consider him a friend. "What's happening here?" she demanded, her voice tense. "These fights, these malfunctions, is it you?" Liam leaned back against the wall, a twisted smile curling across his face. "It's not what you see that kills you," he said softly, his voice dripping with malice. "It's what you don't see. It's what's already in your head." Isabel's breath caught for a moment. Her mask of confidence slipped, and Liam could see the raw fear behind it. "You let me walk," he said, his eyes locked onto hers as he approached. He slipped his hand through the bars, pushing a loose strand of hair behind her ear. "You let me talk, and now look around. Everything's falling apart. All I had to do was open the door, and chaos walked right in." Isabel stumbled back in fear. She couldn't deny it any longer. He wasn't a harmless pet. He was chaos incarnate, someone who didn't need to lift a finger to tear everything apart. The Empire had found Pandora's box, and in their ignorance, they had opened it. "You're dead," Isabel said, a mix of anger and anguish in her voice. "I'll have you executed by morning." "No, you're not," Liam chuckled. "This is all your fault. So unless you want to be executed alongside me, you're not going to say a single thing." Isabel couldn't argue with his logic. She was doomed, but Liam extended a lifeline to her. "I like you, Isabel," he said, "so I'll tell you how to get out of this pickle. Lucky for you, you've accumulated quite the number of vacation days. Take a week off starting tomorrow. I'll delay my escape for a couple of days. You won't be blamed for this." Isabel stood silent, struggling to make sense of her helplessness. "Okay," she muttered, turning to leave. "Oh, and assign Private Lucas Grant to guard me in your place," Liam said playfully. "I like that guy." Isabel stormed off, grinding her teeth. Liam couldn't get out on his own. He needed an inside agent, and that poor soul was Lucas Grant. He was a low-ranking guard already cracking under the paranoia and pressure Liam had fed him. Liam had carefully worked him over, sowing doubts about his fellow guards, whispering to him in moments of tension, turning him against everyone. 2 days later, in the dead of night, Lucas Grant approached the cell. His face was pale, his eyes darting nervously. He looked like a man trapped in a nightmare with no escape. "You were right," Lucas Grant whispered, looking over his shoulder. "They're planning to get rid of me. They think I'm the problem, but I know it's them." Liam leaned toward him, his voice calming, almost seductive. "Of course it's them. They've been turning against you from the start. You can't wait until they get rid of you." Lucas Grant's hands shook as he tapped on the control panel to unlock the door. His mind was swaying, his sanity already half gone. "You'll help me, right? You'll make sure they don't get to me?" he asked desperately. Liam smiled, his eyes dark with sympathy, though his intent was far from kind. "I'll help you, but you have to help me first." Lucas Grant nodded as he unlocked the door. Liam casually walked out, glancing at the guard, who now seemed just as trapped as he had been. Liam glanced at Lucas Grant, a mix of fear and hope in his eyes. "Let's get out of here," Liam said, his voice tinged with malice. They made their way through the facility, Liam seizing every opportunity to use Lucas Grant's keycard to bypass security and sabotage critical infrastructure. He further manipulated Lucas Grant into disabling parts of the power grid, causing blackouts that threw the entire facility into chaos. As they moved, they planted small devices, tools crafted from stolen equipment. These devices would explode, crippling the facility, but not before Liam was long gone. Liam's escape was almost complete when something unexpected happened. As they neared the outer exit of the building, they encountered an unfamiliar group. Liam quickly realized that these weren't Imperial soldiers. Their movements and mannerisms were different. These weren't guards, they were fighters. The leader of the group approached, his eyes sharp and calculating. "Commander Owen Blake," the leader said, studying Liam intently. "You're him, aren't you? The human, the one they've been keeping locked up." Liam narrowed his eyes. "Who the hell are you?" Owen Blake smiled faintly. "Resistance," he replied. "We've been watching this place for a while now, waiting for the right moment. Seems like you've given us one." Liam could see the exhaustion in Owen Blake's face, the toll of a long and tiring fight against the Empire. Yet there was still a fire in those pink eyes. "You're not the first to try and take them down," Liam said, his voice cold. "But if you think guerrilla tactics alone are enough, you're wrong. They'll crush you." Owen Blake nodded. "Maybe, but we've been destabilizing their outer systems for years. We've been a thorn in their side, but we don't have the resources to deliver a killing blow. I think you can help us with that." Liam studied Owen Blake, intrigued but skeptical. "Why me?" Owen Blake stepped closer, his voice quiet but intense. "Because you're something different. We've been fighting this war for years, but you have the ability to tear them apart from the inside. They think they're invincible, but you've shown us they're not." Liam felt the familiar surge of hatred for the Empire. They were like the same arrogant, oppressive force that had exploited the weak, exactly what he blamed for Earth's downfall. "They're weak," Liam said, his voice filled with grim certainty. "They just don't know it yet. I'll help you, but we do it my way. I don't want to fight, I want to break them." Owen Blake nodded, understanding the depth of Liam's hatred. He could see that Liam wasn't just a soldier, he was a weapon designed to bring down empires. "We'll follow your lead," Owen Blake said, "but we need to move quickly. The Empire is getting restless, and it won't be long before they catch on to what's happening here." Liam turned to Lucas Grant, who was nervously standing by the exit, unsure of what to do. "You want to survive this?" Liam asked him. Lucas Grant nodded quickly. "Then disappear," Liam ordered, "before they realize you're the one who let me out." Lucas Grant stumbled away, running back into the facility. Suddenly, a blast rang out behind him, and his brains splattered across the clean white floor. Liam had taken a blaster from Owen Blake's holster and casually fired the shot. "I really like that guy," Liam said nonchalantly as he walked toward the exit. The sound of distant alarms and explosions echoed through the air. The group left the facility behind. Liam had caused enough chaos to keep the Empire distracted for a while, but it wouldn't last long. The Empire would respond swiftly and brutally, but they now had a real fight on their hands. As they moved toward the Resistance safe house, Owen Blake glanced at Liam. "What's the plan?" he asked. Liam's smirk returned, cold and vile. "We make them think they're losing control, then we make them lose everything." The war against the Empire was about to change, and Liam Brooks, through his twisted, anarchistic methods, was the key to bringing it all down. Liam stood before the Resistance fighters. Some faces were skeptical, others were eager. He had shown them how to strike, not with force, but with precision. He explained how they would incite anarchy, turning fear into a deadly weapon. Liam thrived in the tense energy around him, in the growing sense of impending catastrophe. For him, this was more than just a revolution. It was art, a beautiful, twisted game where only he knew the rules. He stepped forward, his voice calm and chilling. "You want to crush those bastards under your feet? You don't go after their machines and ships. You go after them. Their minds, their spirits. That's where our war lies." His eyes glowed under the dim yellow light of the room as he leaned on the table in front of him. Owen Blake stood beside him, watching intently. "They think they're invincible because they have technology, but that's their weakness, their systems, their protocols. They don't adapt. And once they stop trusting those systems, they stop trusting each other." Owen Blake nodded, but his caution was clear. "You talk about tearing them apart from within, but how do we know it'll work?" Liam's ever-present smirk widened, sharp and cold. "Because fear is the most infectious disease, and those who wield great power are the most affected by it. They have too much to lose." The plan was already in motion. The Resistance began spreading the poison of paranoia, which bloomed into widespread distrust. The once disciplined and loyal soldiers now viewed each other with suspicion. They spread rumors of infiltration at an Imperial base. Liam and Zara Stone, the Resistance's second-in-command, disguised themselves, planting falsified Imperial documents suggesting that several high-ranking officers were secretly aiding the Resistance. They planted the documents carelessly, as though they were an accidental leak. By morning, the base was in chaos. The paranoia within the Empire festered. The military believed their ranks had been infiltrated, and every malfunction, every miscommunication was seen as a conspiracy. Liam was everywhere and nowhere. The Galactians couldn't figure out who was responsible for it all, so they turned on each other. At another outpost, Paranoia escalated into a full-on skirmish. Two officers, each convinced the other was a spy, drew their weapons on each other. Shots were fired, and within seconds, the soldiers formed alliances, massacring each other. Liam and Zara Stone watched from a distance, hidden in the shadows of chaos. "I've never seen anything like this," Zara Stone muttered in disbelief. "We fought them for years, but I've never seen them break like this." Liam's smile was eerie and predatory. "Fear is stronger than any weapon. Once you plant it, it spreads, and once it takes root." "They'll do the damage themselves," Liam muttered, his eyes glinting in the low light. Zara Stone glanced at him, unease creeping into her voice. "You enjoy this, don't you?" Liam's eyes shone with a cold, predatory gleam. "Oh, absolutely, my dear Zara. They remind me of some humans I really hate. The thought of bathing in their blood makes my brain tremble with excitement." Zara Stone couldn't think of a way to respond to such a horrifying statement, so she stayed silent. A newfound fear of humans began to grow inside her. What a terrifying species, she thought. She almost felt relieved they were extinct. Back at the research facility, Dr. Ava Sinclair had become obsessed with understanding Liam ever since his escape. Initially, she had regarded him as nothing more than an amusing curiosity. But now, as disorder spread through the Empire, she realized the truth. In the darkness of her lab, she scrambled through ancient military records of Earth, her hands shaking as she pulled up classified files dated just before Earth's demise. She finally uncovered details about Pandora Unit, a group trained in psychological warfare. They didn't fight with guns and bombs. They brought down enemy nations through manipulation and unconventional tactics. As she read through their methods, which mirrored everything that was happening within the Empire, her eyes widened in realization. This isn't just a human," she whispered to herself, the truth sinking in. "He's a weapon, a relic designed to tear us apart from the inside." Her heart raced as she pieced together the puzzle. The man they had laughed at, the man they had seen as nothing more than a weak survivor of a dead world, was systematically dismantling their empire, and they had woken him up. Rushing to Admiral Victor Hale's office, she burst in without knocking. "Admiral, you need to listen to me," she said urgently. "Liam Brooks isn't just some relic from Earth. He's part of a unit designed for psychological warfare. He's using us against ourselves." Victor Hale looked at her with irritation. "And what do you suggest we do? Kill him?" She shook her head. "It's too late for that. He's already in their heads. If we don't act fast, there won't be an empire left to defend." Victor Hale scoffed. "You're panicking, Doctor. A few soldiers turning on each other doesn't mean the empire is falling." Ava Sinclair's voice hardened. "That's exactly what it means. Liam's tactics have only escalated. They've used falsified communications, sabotaged supply chains, and planted evidence of internal betrayal. The Galactians distrust each other now. Command structures are breaking down as commanders are accused of treason. Entire battalions are falling apart, unable to function." Admiral Victor Hale ordered mass crackdowns in desperation. Soldiers were imprisoned, interrogated, and even executed without trial. But that fear-driven response only fed the notion that the Empire was collapsing. Liam and Zara Stone continued their raids and covert operations, exploiting the chaotic command structure. They used the Empire's technological superiority against them, feeding false data into their systems, sending drones and automated defenses into disarray. By the time the Empire realized they were under attack, it was already too late. Zara Stone, watching as one of the Empire's outposts erupted into flames, turned to Liam. "We've been fighting them for years, and in just a few weeks you've broken them." Liam's eyes were cold, his smile predatory. "This was inevitable. All empires fall under the weight of their own hubris. I'm painfully aware of that." The Empire was falling, and Liam Brooks, the last human soldier, reveled in the destruction. The Imperial capital was restless beneath a blood-red sky. It was supposed to be untouchable, a symbol of the Empire's control, but now it was in disarray. Before a single shot was fired, Liam was ready for the final act. The streets of the capital had become a war zone, but the real battle was happening inside the Imperial fleet. Admiral Victor Hale raged inside his command center, his eyes darting between screens as reports of sabotage, conflicting orders, and friendly fire filled the air. Soldiers were turning on each other, entire divisions abandoning their posts. "Fire on Sector 7, Victor Hale barked, pointing at a map showing what he believed to be a fortified resistance stronghold. The fleet above the city fired, and destruction rained down, but the sector was empty. Explosions ripped through their own infrastructure. "It's a trap!" an officer yelled through the communicator, but it was already too late. Victor Hale's face flushed with fury as he refused to accept that one man, one puny human, was responsible for the chaos unraveling his empire. "Find him!" Victor Hale roared. "Find Liam and bring me his head." Meanwhile, Liam moved through the city unnoticed, using the confusion to slip past patrols and defenses. The Galactians were caught in a game of smoke and mirrors, no longer able to distinguish friend from foe. Liam's communicator buzzed as he approached the central command building. Zara Stone's voice came through, filled with satisfaction. "The fleet's in complete disarray. They're shooting at their own ships now. We're ready when you are." "Keep them busy," Liam replied. "I'll handle Victor Hale." Liam easily slipped inside the building. The guards had no idea. Their defenses were already useless. He was a shadow in the heart of their most secure facility. Liam stepped into the command chamber, the door sliding shut behind him. Victor Hale, preoccupied with his screens and reports, didn't notice the intrusion. Liam moved silently, his eyes locked on Victor Hale, the man who had ordered his awakening, who had mocked him, who had failed to understand what he had unleashed on his world. "You've lost," Liam said, his voice echoing through the chamber. Victor Hale spun around, his eyes wild with rage. "You?" He reached for a plasma pistol on his desk and fired without hesitation. But Liam was faster. He rolled to the side, the blast barely missing him. "You think you can take my empire from me?" Victor Hale shouted, firing again. "One man can't destroy an empire." Liam moved like a wild beast, ducking behind a console and circling Victor Hale. "I don't need to destroy it," he said. "I just needed to show the world that you can bleed." Victor Hale fired again, but this time, Liam rolled forward, knocking the weapon from Victor Hale's hand with a single brutal strike. Victor Hale stumbled back, shock and fury in his eyes. He wasn't facing a harmless pet. He was facing the product of humanity's darkest days. Liam closed in as Victor Hale swung his giant arms, trying to land a punch. Liam was too quick for him, slipping inside his guard and driving his elbow into Victor Hale's ribs. Victor Hale gasped and stumbled back in pain. "I can't hear you laughing now," Liam said, his voice dripping with malice. Victor Hale threw another punch in frustration, but Liam easily dodged. Victor Hale was used to commanding armies and controlling fleets, but here, in brutal hand-to-hand combat, he was outclassed. Liam dragged Victor Hale across the floor, slamming him against the wall. Victor Hale struggled, trying to break free, but Liam's grip was unbreakable. He leaned in close, his voice like a cold icicle stabbing into Victor Hale's ear. Liam leaned close to Victor Hale's ear. "You thought we were gone. You thought humanity was extinct, but we were waiting, and now you'll be the first to fall." With that, Liam pulled out a blade, flicked it into the air, grabbed it, and drove it into the Admiral's neck. Victor Hale groaned as his limp body collapsed to the floor. Liam twisted the knife, his eyes glued to Victor Hale's anguished expression as it lost its light of life. As he wiped the blood from the blade, Liam casually walked away. "I really don't like that guy," he muttered. By the time Liam exited the command center, the city was already ablaze. The resistance had taken control of key points across the capital, and Imperial forces were in full retreat. Zara Stone rushed toward Liam, her eyes filled with a mixture of admiration and unease. "It's over, isn't it?" Liam glanced at her, his expression unreadable. "For Victor Hale, yes, but there's still work to be done. The Empire isn't just a man, it's a system. We've weakened it, but it's not dead yet." Zara Stone nodded. "And what about you? What will you do now?" "I still have something important to do," Liam replied as the resistance secured the central communication hub. Liam walked deliberately through the corridors. His job wasn't done yet. This had never been about the Empire, it was about humanity. Inside the hub's control room, Zara Stone was leading the final steps of establishing control. The main servers were still intact, and the resistance was working quickly to neutralize the Empire's remaining systems. Zara Stone looked up at Liam's grim face as he entered. "It's done," she said, her voice tired but relieved. "The capital is ours. The Empire's fleets are scattered." Liam nodded, glancing around the room. "Good, but we're not finished yet." Zara Stone wiped sweat from her forehead. "What do you mean?" "Victor Hale's dead. Their command center is in ruins. What's left? Liam ignored her and took her place at the main console, bypassing security protocols with ease. Zara Stone watched him, suspicion creeping into her voice. What are you doing? Liam placed a small metallic device on the console and tapped it twice. It began to glow with a soft, pulsating light. He looked up at Zara Stone, his expression finally showing a hint of relief. The next phase, he said quietly. The device interacted with the console, its code spreading across the display. Coordinates and commands appeared on the screen, data Zara Stone couldn't make sense of. She stared at Liam, suspicion growing. What are you doing, Liam? He turned toward her, his face cold, his eyes determined. I'm carrying out my mission, what we were all meant to do. Zara Stone stepped back, her hand instinctively moving toward the weapon at her side. What the hell are you talking about? Liam's fingers flew across the console, typing out a series of commands. You think this was just about taking down the Empire? That was only part of the plan. Zara Stone's heart pounded in her chest. Then what was the plan? Liam, tell me. Liam didn't stop working. His voice was calm, distant. You think I was the only one Earth put its entire survival on the shoulders of one soldier? Zara Stone's breath caught, the pieces slowly starting to come together. Wait, you're saying there are more of you? Liam smirked, glancing over at her. Thousands. Zara Stone's heart skipped a beat as the weight of his words sank in. Thousands like you? Liam nodded. Earth knew it couldn't survive the wars that were coming. Our planet was dying. Our resources were gone. But we had one last weapon. Us. Soldiers trained not just to fight, but to dismantle, destabilize, and rebuild. Before Earth fell, they sent us into the stars, scattered across the galaxy. Zara Stone's face paled as she realized the magnitude of what he was saying. So you were meant to wake up, do this, and then what? Rebuild humanity? Liam finally stopped typing and stepped closer to her, his dark eyes fixed on hers with intensity. Exactly. I was the first. My job was to find the weak point in the galaxy, break it, and call the others here. Zara Stone's mind raced as she tried to make sense of it all. The others? Are they like you? Liam chuckled. They're worse. Zara Stone stepped back, watching in stunned silence as the console flashed with confirmation. The signal had been sent. A beacon stretched out into the far corners of space. It was calling them. I don't understand, Zara Stone mumbled, her words trembling. So this was the plan all along. You were never meant to fight alone. No, Liam said quietly. We were never alone. Earth's final plan wasn't just about survival. It was about revival. We were meant to wake up, find the broken pieces of the galaxy, and use them for our purpose. I was just the first. Zara Stone could only watch as the signal stretched out across the stars. So now what? She asked, unease gnawing at her. The galaxy is going to face thousands of you, soldiers trained to break entire systems? Liam's lips curled into a smile, his eyes still fixed on the stars. Exactly. We were built for this. The Empire was just the first step. Zara Stone stared at him, anxiety consuming her. What if the galaxy doesn't want to be used by humans? Liam's smile faded and his voice turned cold. It doesn't matter what the galaxy wants. This isn't about them. It's about us. Humanity is coming back and nothing is going to stop that.